Welcome back. Let's take a closer look at our main story on GMT. Zimbabwe's election is underway today. Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai is challenging President Robert Mugabe for the top job for a third time. Now, in his 33 years in power, Mr. Mugabe has taken his country from a fully functioning economy to a basket case and then back again. Let me just give you an example of that. 5 years ago, inflation was sitting at, believe it or not, 231 million%, making a loaf of bread about 1.6 trillion Zimbabwean dollars. A multiple currency system was put in place, and today inflation is under control at 5.9%. A loaf of bread will now set you back a more reasonable $1. Well, as I was saying, with me is Wilf Mbanga. He's the editor of the Zimbabwean, which describes itself as the first newspaper for Zimbabweans in exile. Thank you and very welcome to GMT.
Thanks, Phil.
In the past, you and I both looked at elections in Zimbabwe. In the past, it's been rather easy in some ways. There's been violence, obvious violence. This time, it's more difficult, isn't it? Because people are saying that the manipulation is more subtle.
Well, Mugabe realizes that if he uses violence, you'll be condemned by the African Union observers as well as SADC. You know, SADC, the Southern African...
That's a regional organization.
Regional body. Has got certain norms which have to be adhered to. And violence is one of the things that, will fail the test, the credibility test. Mugabe is aware of this. So this time around, he's decided no violence, but it's only absence of violence. There's still no peace. People have been threatened in their villages. They've been told how they will go and vote in groups of 10 for people in the rural areas, under the traditional leaders, and they must remember the last 3 digits of the voting ballot, which they'll give to the traditional leader, and they will check this after the elections. So retribution will come after the elections, not before.
Or at least that's the fear. Anyway.
That's the fear.
That's the fear. I mean, let me put this, look at it another way. I mean, if you are a supporter of Robert Mugabe and what you're doing, I've just said, the economy is more or less back on track.
Yes.
When I was there a few years back, there's nothing in the supermarkets, and now the supermarkets are kind of groaning with goods. So couldn't he make a case, Mr. Mugabe, that is, to say, look, I've turned things around?
No, he didn't. It wasn't him. It was the Minister of Finance, Tendai Biti, who did away with the local currency and introduced multiple currencies.
And he's, of course, a member of the Movement for Democratic Change, the opposition.
That's right. And also...
will people recognise and accept that? Will they say, if things are better, this is down to the coalition partner, this is down to the opposition part of the government and not Mr. Mugabe?
Well, people know what happened under Mugabe's rule. When Mugabe was in charge, things went, awry. But with the MDC involved, things improved. So people are aware of that. But there's still a problem in Zimbabwe in that the media is restricted. There is no independent radio or TV stations. It's all government controlled. So they've been controlling the messages to the people, particularly in the rural areas.
What do you think? I asked this a question of our correspondent earlier, and she wasn't sure. I mean, a big turnout is good for whom?
A big turnout would tend to favour... Well, it depends where it is, because with the registration of voters, they managed to get they have got 4 million voters in the rural areas and 1.8 million in the urban areas. So you can have everybody in the urban areas, turning out to vote for MDC. It's not going to affect the rural vote.
And most of the opposition's vote comes from the urban
areas, yeah. Not from the rural areas. And this is the rural areas. Mugabe has been concentrating, on those areas. Well, he has campaigned in the urban areas, but he's had very few people coming to his rallies. It's been in the rural areas where he's been very popular.
And what about the role of social media? I mean, which we didn't see before. I mean, I gather "show us your phone" is actually a sort of opposition cry. You've got the ability to send messages and so on. Well,
the penetration of cell phones in Zimbabwe is remarkable. I mean, something like 80%. So even people in the rural areas have got cell phones. And it's one of the things that, people have been exchanging messages. And the government is aware of this. And since yesterday, where people are having problems with connectivity. This morning, 7 of my reporters couldn't even phone. Their phones suddenly cut off.
Really?
So this is a problem that we have today.
Okay, and very, very quickly, the other point is that there's been so-called land reform, some people call it land seizures and so on, but there is a sense that some of that land that was taken off white farmers, is now beginning to deliver. Again, that sort of rather favours Mr. Mugabe, does it not?
It's few farmers who are delivering. You know, Zimbabwe is still a net importer of food. You know, it went from a position where we were the breadbasket of the region, and now, to this day, we're still dependent on food aid.
Okay. Wilf Mbanga, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much. Thank you.